So my talk is about golf and life, and there's similarities than you think. So golf has a very personal, deep connection to myself, and I've been exposed to it since a young age. And I have to thank my dad, my Uncle Frank, and my grandfather for that. And that love of the sport really developed into something else. And besides developing the love, I've learned to interpret the game in some interesting ways. So golf, like life, has a very interesting way of imitating life, or vice versa even. For all those people in the audience that aren't golfers, you're all thinking, how does hitting a little white ball into a hole be so similar to this? And I think it was best put when professional golfer Bobby Jones said, golf is the closest game to the game of life. You get good breaks from bad shots, you get bad breaks from good shots, but no matter where the ball is, you have to play it where it lies. So what I've learned from golf is that it can kind of be broken down into two different types of lessons: the long-term lessons that you take away with in the end, and the immediate lessons that you learn while you play. So some of the immediate lessons that I've learned is, the first thing is, every golf shot starts with a good setup or foundation. So in golf, your position and your setup is what mounts you to the ground. And if you don't have a good setup, you'll probably just swing blindly, or you'll miss, and you'll probably just get upset. But the good setup is, in real life, you can think of it as a foundation. I like to think of the golf swing as completing a task. And the first step that people don't talk about is the setup. It's the preparation for what you want to do, what you want to complete. The next immediate lesson that I learned from golf is the importance of the swing and the three elements of it. So golf is broken down into your takeaway, which you take the club back, then it's your follow through, and then your point of impact, and you finish your swing. So the order is your takeaway, your point of impact, and your follow through. And I like to think of it as the past, the present, the future. As you take away and you set up your swing, it's your past. It's all the preparations you've made before your point of impact, which is your point of change, what you want to do, and your follow through is how you finish. My third immediate lesson I want to talk about is aim. So even if you have a great swing and setup, aim is just as important. You can't always assume that what you want to do will always go on target. You have to assume for unexpected variables. And the thing is, you have to analyze to your surroundings, readjust, and then fire off to what you want to do. The common expression is ready, aim, fire. It's not ready, fire, aim. So you got to think about what you want to do, fall on target, and then complete it. But those immediate lessons kind of are there's a stretch between how they parallel and connect to life. And it's not until you get to the long-term lessons where you realize that they're much more similar than you think. The first long-term lesson that I learned was the idea of swinging hard and praying. So when I first started golf, I thought it was all about hitting the ball as hard as you can, creating the most force, and seeing the ball go as far as possible. I used to do this, and probably 1 out of 20 shots, I'd make good contact and the ball would go. Everything else, I'd miss or it'd go left or right. And then I realized that it's not about how hard you swung, but it's about the quality of the impact, the contact. I did some research and I found the correlation between the impact and how far the ball went versus the force. And what I'm trying to say is, in life, rarely anything is created just by force alone. It's all about sometimes the impact, sometimes slowing down, which I did to create the good impact is what you need to do. Slowing down is not a sign of weakness. When you realize that people always say the famous saying, work hard. And I think it needs to be redefined as, it's not about how hard you work, it's about how smart you work. Because if you work efficiently, it's just as productive as working 10 hours instead of working all that work in 2 hours. The next long-term lesson I want to talk about is embracing failure. So whenever you're given a choice, you're always given a chance of failure. And you can either buckle down under the failure, the fear, and the pressure, or you can rise to the occasion, think of it as a normal event, and just gain valuable experience from it. I want to say that you can think of this buckling under, this embracing fear as a way to improve. when I set up for a golf swing, I think of what can go wrong. It's instinctive. Everyone thinks about what can go wrong when you start something new. But if you can just push that aside just a little bit, like in life, and you focus on the execution of what you want to do, that's what's going to happen. The negatives of failing just go blank from your mind. You don't think about it, and you just think about what you want to do, and that's what happens most of the time. The next thing I want to talk about is what I like to call the thin line in golf. The thin line can be the difference of a few feet from a ball that's perfectly in play, that it's a great shot, versus a ball that's lost or in the water. I like this thin line. You can see it's not. People think it's luck, but in reality, it's not. When you compare most amateurs and professionals, that thin line is like a huge spread for those amateurs and for those professional golfers. It's like very small. Their sources of error are practically none. And the thing is, it's consistency. That's what that luck, what everyone thinks it is, that thin line. But in reality, that consistency is all created by practice. You look at the number of hours these pro golfers put in, it's about 10,000 hours. And then you compare to these amateurs, they just play whenever they want. And the importance of that thin line is that practice makes perfect. You never succeed on your first try. It's this whole process of you try, you practice, and you repeat until you get it. But all the practice in the world won't make you better if you have bad form. And that's just this fact about anything. And that's where asking for help kind of has taught me that it's a long-term lesson that applies to both life and golf. So people are usually afraid to ask for help because they think it's a sign of weakness. But in reality, it's a sign of courage, because people realize their faults and they realize that they need to improve. For example, Tiger Woods had Hank Hanley as his coach, and Jordan Spieth has Cameron McCormick, and I have my dad, which I know isn't one of those golfers, but he's taught me through all of this. And having that kind of help kind of make sure that you fine-tune those things that you're doing well and fix what's wrong. Another long-term lesson that I want to talk about is golf, like life, is a game of lifelong learning. It's not something that you just pick up one day and you perfect it and then you say, I'm done. It's something that every time you go out, even when I'm not playing my best, I'll hit a bad score and hit some bad shots, and I'll want to leave the course. But every time I play, I realize there's always something to learn. There's something new to do, and there's some way to improve. And that's what I've really taken away from lifelong learning of golf. There's a few more things I want to talk about, long-term lessons, not immediate, long-term lessons, which are how fear impacts life in golf. Fear controls what we do. It's the idea that we will do something because we're making preconceived notions about the worst. And fear, if you think about it, only impacts the present. It never impacts the future. It never impacts anything else. It just impacts your mental state at that point of time. So what I'm trying to say is fear, like failure, you always think of the worst, but if you think about just the execution, it will work out. A real life example is public speaking, or someone asking the person they want to ask out. They always fear what could go wrong, but if they think about the positives they have going and what they're doing right, and they build up that courage, then they might get rejected or they may not. That fear, you have to learn to embrace it and improve upon it. The last long-term lesson I want to talk about is this idea in golf and in life called play the ball where it lies. Don't lie about where you play it. So most amateurs, when they play golf, they move their ball to a better position, and when they're not playing a tournament, that's fine. They can just take a penalty, or they can just play it for fun. But when you're playing within the constraints of the rules, or in a tournament or a competitive match, and there are no buts, no ifs, you have to play it as is. And what I've learned is, like in life, it's a clear-cut example of this idea in life as a game, that it's a clear-cut example of ethics. When people cheat, it creates this preconceived notions about how people act outside of the golf course, outside of their surroundings. But people need to live by this mentality of honesty in the wake of mistakes. No one's perfect, and everyone will make mistakes. But if you're honest enough to know that I made that mistake and I have to build upon it, that's the secret. People shouldn't live by cheating and hoping that they won't get caught, because eventually you'll get caught. So life, like golf, is full of holes and pitfalls. life like golf is about maintaining par with the people around you. It's about trying to be equal with everyone around you. But most importantly, life like golf is about enjoying it. Every time I go out in golf course, I always enjoy something. When I'm not playing well, it's always the nice walk and the time to just look at the surroundings and some therapy and some time for myself. And sometimes when I'm playing well, it's nice to play well. But I want to end with this note about golf and life. They're both intricate games, but it's not always, it's about how, so life and golf, you have to play it smart and you have to play it well. And that's the ultimate message that I want to try to convey to you if you take anything away from this talk. Thank you.